And if you don't listen to us, you will be censored, you will be shamed, you will be banished, you will be pushed out of society, out of families, out of your friendship circle, even out of your jobs. When you get to know God, you get to know everything that isn't of God and that is ultimately so far removed. You get the truth compass, and you know in your heart what is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is lie. One of the biggest roadblocks, if you will, that we're all experiencing as a society is a culture of silence around so many subjects. And it has become way better in the past years. Way more people are becoming more brave and actually talking about things that are wrong, that are evil, that are really just absolutely psychologically, mentally sick. But there was a pressure campaign that's been unleashed on the American people and society at large in other countries. It turned from a discussion and debate culture into a compliance culture where if you did not go with the grain, like we're seeing this now, the woke pride, which is, by the way, the transhumanist grain, the major issue is that people stay quiet and keep and put up with stuff until they're pushed into a corner. And then when they're pushed into a corner, then they react like a cornered animal because they didn't do all the things they should have done before. And it's also a loss of self-respect. Every time you go along with something that you think is wrong, that you think is evil, whenever you go along with it, you lose a little bit of that self-respect. And that is really the problem. I mean, there are now universities, doctors and scientists out there who create programs for trans toddlers. There is no such thing as a trans toddler. They're just mentally insane and mentally sick parents, completely insane parents. And then you have a whole apparatus created around it that creates a culture and a cult that is absolutely insane. And the thing is, it is a subtle and it is a slow process that moves people into submission, and it tells them to stay quiet no matter what they see. If you look at what CNN reports about the movie Sound of Freedom and child as such, how they talk about it and other mainstream media outlets talk about it, it is a program, and the program says, we are going to tell you what is acceptable to talk about and what not. We are going to tell you what the subjects are that you should be concerned with and what they aren't. And if you don't listen to us, you will be censored, you will be shamed, you will be banished, you will be pushed out of society, out of families, out of your friendship circle, even out of your jobs, because you dare to speak your mind freely. And so there is already fascism among us right now. There is a fascist, huge fascist movement that is so mentally sick and depraved that their depravity only allows them to function in a completely reality-free bubble. They create their own metaverse reality because they can't cope in a normally, we're not normal, but in a normal society for various reasons. And that's why these socially very, very awkward people, the Bill Gateses and the Mark Zuckerbergs and many, many others that are out in the public arena, their inner drive is to create a society that won't make them feel uncomfortable anymore because they can't deal with emotions and feelings. You can tell they cannot. You can tell that's a huge problem. So they're absolutely driven to push for agendas and to push for guidelines that silence any dissent and that silence anybody who thinks differently. And so for them, it's much easier, because they have the means to do it, to try to change society rather than change themselves and try to heal whatever needs healing. But make no mistake, these people pretend to be peaceful and loving and accepting and whatnot. They are extremely violent because they're using every tool at their disposal to take away your right to express yourself freely, but also to take away your right to have any say in how society should function and by what values and moral society should function and what framework we put together as a society. Their framework is absolute insanity. And We need to have the courage to speak up every day and stand for what we know is right. We're not even talking about belief systems anymore. Anything that removes itself so far from nature is not a belief system. It's just destined to die. All these systems are destined to die when they remove themselves from nature, because nothing can exist apart from nature for longer periods of time. But, and here's the key point, we're already allowing insane policies and insane values to penetrate our schools, to penetrate our political system, to penetrate the public discussion, to penetrate entertainment, to penetrate everything. We're already allowing it. And we're kind of thinking, well, you know, it might not have come to my town yet. It might not have come to my door yet. But this is what has been always the problem. The good thing, right? The positive thing with COVID was really, it came to everyone's door almost all at once. And this was the blessing and the curse, of course. But it gave everyone an immediate consequence of going along with it and staying silent and not doing anything about it. It gave people the immediate consequence. If you are not standing up right now, this is the consequence. You're not going to go and work. You're not going to go out and do whatever you want to do. You're not going to drive. You're not going to go to the store or even out in nature. So this gave us an immediate consequence. The woke movement, they have no restrictions. They have no moral consequences because they have no belief system. They don't know God. And if you don't know God, you don't have anyone to answer to. I'm talking about the creator that created everything. That's the ultimate consequence, that you have to answer to the creator for your transgressions. Whether you think that creator is a punisher or not is a different story, but you still have to answer. But these people don't have that consequence because they don't know the creator. They don't have that. So for everything they do, the ends justify the means. That's their whole MO. And that's why you see people that have a moral compass, they cannot use the same tools as those who don't, because those who don't care. And to them, anyone who is opposed to their views, to them, anyone who is not accepting of their views or sees it differently is the enemy that needs to be crushed. I don't feel that way about people who don't see the world the way I do, but they do. That's how they operate. Recently, the chairman of BlackRock came out, and it was sort of a conference where he spoke, and he said, we have to force behavior. We have to force behavior. But here, he didn't finish the sentence. He said, we have to force people into accepting everything. Listen to the oxymoron, the emphasis on moron, the oxymoronic sound of that sentence. We have to force our employees in all our companies, in all the companies that we control, which BlackRock controls most of the world, into compliance. They need to behave the way we tell them to. So they need to accept that there are 67 invented genders. 67, you could call it 67 different ways to feel about yourself, and that would be legitimate, but there aren't 67 genders, right? It's not a social construct. When they are forcing their employees into that behavior, they tell you how they feel about free will, free speech, free expression, or freedom at large. They're not interested in that. This is the oxymoron, because in one sentence they're saying we want to be free to be who we are, but you are not free to be who you are and how you feel if you don't feel like we do. And there was a time in our society where people could kind of patch things together better, that were on opposite ends of a spectrum, and find common ground. Currently, there's such extremism because these people have been driven into such forms of extreme mind control and mind programming. There is no getting through. There is no having a discussion, because you're not talking to a fully functioning human being anymore. You're talking to a programmed biorobot. And these are the problems that we're facing. However, we're going to have courage and stand up, and also at some point say, no, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And the most important reason, if we do not do that, the generation that's coming up will be completely and utterly lost. because that's what they learn in kindergarten, in preschool, in middle school, in high school, in college and university. And when they go into the workplace, it's being enforced. And so they won't have a different concept. They won't have a concept of free speech, or their concept of free speech, freedom, free thought will be so diluted that it will not resemble anything. I mean, ours is already, collectively speaking, diluted from where it used to be, but this is the real danger that we run. So I just want to encourage you all, first and foremost, this has been the message on our channel for all these years now. Get to know God. Go deep within. Pray, meditate, spend time in nature, close your eyes, feel until you feel the presence again. Because when you get to know God, you get to know everything that isn't of God and that is ultimately so far removed. You get the truth compass, and you know in your heart what is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is lie. That's the only compass you can have, because there's never going to be a source of information that is as trustworthy as the original source. The original source, if you're connected, gives you perfect guidance, lets you know perfectly what is and isn't true. That is the message. The message is those who truly know God will walk the path as narrow as it gets, and it gets narrow, and they will fit through that proverbial eye of the needle, because they will cleanse themselves from everything that isn't truthful, that isn't authentic, and that isn't divinely inspired. And that's just, there is no other way around this. This is where we are, and it's a positive thing for me. It's a positive thing, and it's not dogmatic. It's not a crusade, because it's just your inner journey. This is, by the way, what the song that I shared with you, my new song, I wrote it 5 years ago, but only now did I get the sign from God. It was time to release that particular song. It's called Faith in Me, and this is exactly what that song, by the way, speaks about. So I'm gonna share the link again down in the comments, and thank you for all your beautiful, beautiful comments and reactions. But this is the exact inspiration I have for that song and where it came from. So Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll be back with you again very, very soon.
And you've been waiting oh so patiently for me to close my eyes.